Okay, so today we are going to discuss about humanistic psychology. So English only challenge सकिसकेको छ. So we are going to talk in mixed language. So आज हामी humanistic psychology को बारेमा कुरा गरौँ है. What is humanistic psychology? नामले भन्ने अनुसार it focuses on human. It focuses on what? Human. That is what humanistic psychology is all about. Okay, so let's read. Humanistic psychology emerged as a response to two dominant approaches in psychology: psychoanalysis, which focused on unconscious conflict, and behaviorism, which emphasized observable behavior and conditioning. Unlike these approaches, humanistic psychology placed the individual's subjective experiences, personal meaning, and capacity for growth at the center of psychological understanding. So, before in psychoanalysis, के थियो भन्दाखेरि your past trauma, the unconscious conflict, है, there is conscious, unconscious, so your unconscious conflict. And when it comes to behaviorism, observable behavior and conditioning, अर्थात् पहिलाको जुन साइकोलोजीहरू थियो, that was psychoanalysis that we studied in first sem, also about behaviorism. त्यसले चाहिँ के फोकस गर्थ्यो भन्दाखेरि it is more deterministic. अर्थात् the external things control you. Okay, you don't control so much about yourself. You don't have a kind of free will. Okay? For example, what I'm trying to say is, suppose you have anxiety. Psychoanalysis like it's because of past traumas, or it's because of conflicts, right? Unconscious conflicts, right? Unconscious conflict को कारणले गर्दा you have anxiety भन्ने कुरा थियो. Behaviorism ले के भन्यो? It's because of conditioning. You are like a machine, and now you had that experiences, you had that conditioning, त्यसको कारणले गर्दा you have anxiety. Whereas humanistic psychology ले चाहिँ के भन्छ भन्दाखेरि you have a free will, है, you decide. यसमा चाहिँ के थियो? You don't have a choice, you don't decide kind of. तर humanistic ले चाहिँ के भन्छ? It's centered towards human, है, it's centered towards you, and it says you have a free will, है. And people have their own subjective experiences. Behaviorismहरू चाहिँ के थियो? अलिक साइन्टिफिक फ्रेममा भएको थियो धेरै नै. Behaviorism त one of the most scientific branch या स्कुल अफ साइकोलोजी, एकदमै साइन्टिफिक, एकदमै मसिन जस्तो देख्ने. तर ह्युमेनिस्टिकले के भन्छ? इन्डिभिजुअलको सब्जेक्टिभ एक्सपिरियन्सेस छ, मान्छेहरूले आफ्नो मिनिङ दिन्छ, मिनिङ टुवर्ड्स लेट्स एङ्जाइटी. दे हेभ देयर ओन एक्सपिरियन्सेस अफ एङ्जाइटी, they have their own meaning towards it, right? And they also have the capacity to grow. अर्थात् humanistic psychology ले चाहिँ के भन्छ? You have your own subjective experiences. तपाईको आफ्नै experiences छ यो दुनियाँको बारेमा, तपाईको बारेमा. Similarly, तपाईको आफ्नै meaning छ, धारणा छ. Similarly, you also have the capacity to grow. पहिला चाहिँ के थियो? जस्तै साइकोएनालिसिसको कुरा गर्दाखेरि you had a problem. So अलिकति प्रब्लम सेन्ट्रिक थियो, है. सिमिलरली बिहेभियरिजममा पनि अलिकति प्रब्लम सेन्ट्रिक थियो भनेपछि ह्युमेनिस्टिकमा चाहिँ के छ? प्रब्लम पनि छ काइन्ड अफ, तर धेरै जस्तो चाहिँ यसको मोटिभ या यसको जुन भनाइ हो त्यो चाहिँ इट्स अल्सो अबाउट यु हेभ द क्यापेसिटी टु ग्रो. तपाईकोमा it's not just about wrong things in you, it's also about the good things in you. It focuses on those aspects as well. Okay, it's more human approach. Okay, किनभने only negative things are not like being human neither. There are positive things as well. And it's not just about you're a machine, जुन behaviorism मा भनेको थियो. It's not just about unconscious conflicts, right? Unconscious भन्ने बित्तिकै it's unconscious. You have less control towards it. It's not like conscious, it's unconscious. And your unconscious जुन conflict हुन्छ त्यसको कारणले गर्दा your life is determined भनेर जुन कुरा हुन्थ्यो, that was seen most as less human, okay? And humanistic psychology is about more human. Your experiences matter, your subjective experiences, your individual subjective experiences matters, your meaning, what meaning you make, that matters, your personal meaning. And you just don't you are not, your problems are not just only addressed, or you are not seen just as a problem, but the good things in you is also being seen. The good things in you, the good things, not just the wrong things. That is what humanistic psychology is all about. So let's talk about the antecedent influences, okay? So humanistic psychology groundwork चाहिँ two earlier movements को बाट भएको थियो. One is phenomenology and second is existential psychology. So let's look at phenomenology. It was developed by Edmund Husserl, okay? Introduced a method for studying conscious experiences without reducing it to components, okay? Conscious experience, we're going to talk about that. This approach emphasized that reality is fundamentally shaped by how individuals perceive, okay, and interpret their experiences, a principle that became central to humanistic therapy approaches. Phenomenology ma, what it is said is, jun reality छ नि, that is shaped by how individual person perceive र त्योलाई interpret गर्छ त्यो experiences-लाई. For example, पानी परिरहेछ, one person may experience it differently, the other person may experience it differently. If you have ever been in love, so if somebody tells you about love, you'll have a different experience compared to the person who may not have been in love. I'm talking about romantic love. So people have their own experiences and people perceive it differently. Every individuals have their own way of perceiving and interpreting those experiences. That is what phenomenology is about. It looks at it. People, every individual people perceive and interpret things or experiences differently. Okay? And in phenomenology, Edmund Husserl, what he does phenomenology was developed by Edmund Husserl, and he introduced a method for studying conscious experiences without reducing it into components. Our main thing, first sem we talked about many schools of psychology. What is that common thing? Even if we talk about structuralism, conscious experience, say it was broken down. Okay? Like water is broken down into H2O, duita hydrogen and oxygen. त्यसरी नै conscious experiences was also broken down into emotions, cognition, thoughts. Phenomenology ma ke huncha, everything is important here. Whole, you know, Gestalt ma थियो नि, whole and parts भनेर. The whole is also important. It's not that what emotions do you have about that experience, but what thoughts you have about that experience. Everything matters, right? Everything gives you this whole picture of understanding, or gives you the meaning of that experience. What are we trying to understand in phenomenology? We are trying to understand the meaning, how people perceive and interpret the experiences. And how are we going to do it? We are going to do it by seeing everything, seeing the whole, not by reducing it, not by reducing it into structures, not like that. We are going to see everything as a whole, and we are going to derive, or we are going to look at the meaning of it. And every individual have their own subjective way of perceiving and interpreting the experiences. That is about phenomenology. Now the next thing that, and this thing has influenced humanistic psychology. Okay, how we gonna know after reading it more? And it said that it's a principle that became central to humanistic therapy approaches. Okay, in the therapy, humanistic therapy, it is a very key principle. This the principle of phenomenology. The next thing is existential psychology. Okay, focused on human existence. Okay, it talks about existence. It talks about free will. We talked about free will. Hey, it talks about personal responsibility. Personal. Okay, you have a responsibility, and also meaning making. It rejected the deterministic view that humans are primarily controlled by unconscious forces or external condition, instead proposing that anxiety, okay, not controlled by external condition, instead proposing that anxiety and suffering are natural aspect. Anxiety is suffering of human existence that must be acknowledged for authentic living. Okay, what is about existential psychology? Okay, it looks at the human existence. Okay, we exist. This existence is what we are trying to understand. Okay, next is it also talk about free will. Okay, it does not it rejects the deterministic view. It rejects the idea that external things or external conditioning or our unconscious forces determine us. It rejects that idea. Control us. It rejects that idea that external things control us, or we can say external conditioning. Sorry, not things. Like I'm trying to say is, what it's trying to say is, we are in a control. We are in control of things. It's not that the uncontrollable things or uncontrollable things determine us. Okay, we have a free will. Okay, we can decide. It's trying to say that. And it talks about human existence. It talks about personal responsibility. Okay, people's personal responsibility and meaning. What meaning we make? Hey, what meaning we make? Common thing here also. We are talking meaning here also. Talking about meaning. Okay, so it's about personal, subjective meaning, subjective responsibility as well. So we're gonna talk about it more. Okay, when we talk about contributors, and it's going to make sense because we cannot explain phenomenology in one paragraph or existential psychology in one paragraph. When we'll read it more about these figures, contributors, then we will be able to understand what it's trying to say when it comes to responsibility, personal responsibility, about meaning making, about human existence. What does that mean? And not just that, but also about acknowledged for authentic living. What do you mean by authentic living? We are going to talk about that. Spoiler, okay? Authentic living, we are also going to talk about that. So now let's look at the key contributors of humanistic psychology, or key contributors. What I'm trying to say is, who are the key contributors of existentialism and phenomenology also. Okay, these two are quite there in one place. And how it influenced, okay, how the ideas of, okay, what we are trying to do is how the ideas of these key contributors or this key figure influenced the humanistic psychology. That's what we are going to study. The first one is Martin Heidegger. Okay, Martin Heidegger. Okay, Heidegger, he was a German philosopher, created a bridge between existential philosophy and psychology. Okay, so he created a bridge between existential psychology, means he connected both through several influential concepts. So he had some of the concepts. So we are going to talk about that. Let's talk about the first concept, his concept of Dasein or Dasein, I don't know what it is called, being in the world. Proposed that humans and their environments are inseparable. Humans and their environments are inseparable. We cannot understand a person outside of their context. This challenged psychology to consider people holistically within the lived environment. Okay, so being in the world, we are in the world. So we cannot isolate a person and try to understand him. That's not going to be good. That's not going to be nice. That's what Martin Heidegger said. Because we are in this world, and the context matter, the culture matter, the society matter. That's what he's trying to say. Humans and the environment, they cannot be inseparable because we are in this environment, this world. And we can only understand the person if we also understand the context. You can only understand me if you also understand the context, the environment, the culture, maybe the society, maybe the family, maybe. You need to consider it as well. That is the concept of Dasein, being in the world. Okay. So next is Heidegger distinguished between authenticity, okay, authenticity, which is living according to one's own choices, okay, one's own choices, and accepting responsibility, and inauthenticity, living according to social expectation and avoiding responsibility. He believed that anxiety is not something to be eliminated. Anxiety is not something to be eliminated, but rather a natural response to recognizing our mortality. Okay, I don't know the spelling, but mortality, death. One that can motivate meaningful life choices. Okay, let's talk about that. Heidegger, he distinguished between authenticity and inauthenticity. Authenticity means to live on the person's own value, okay, on own choices, and accepting responsibility. There are certain responsibility. We are in this world, and if we accept that responsibility and we make choices based on our own, what can I say? I want it, so I do it. Based on me, based on my own choices. Okay, if I live, and if I also accept responsibility of being in this world, about me, taking my responsibility as well, responsibility of life to live. That is the authentic style of living. Inauthentic means living according to the social expectation, what society expect from you, and also avoiding responsibility of your life. So he said that you can only be authentic if you listen to yourself and take responsibility of yourself. Okay, if you don't, then you are not living an authentic life. That was his idea. He believed that anxiety is not something to be eliminated. Anxiety, before, it's seen as a disease and it's something that needs to be eliminated. But what Heidegger believed is anxiety is not something to be eliminated, but it is something that comes natural. Okay, it's a natural response to recognizing our death, our mortality. One day we are going to die, so we will have anxiety, and it's natural to have anxiety. And this anxiety can motivate meaningful life choices. So knowing that I am going to die, it gives anxiety, and this anxiety can help me make meaningful choices in our life. Knowing that I am going to die, I have a limited time, so I need to do something. I need to make it valuable. I need to do something for society or myself. It's about recognizing that I'm going to die, and that we'll have anxiety, and we are going to use that anxiety to motivate us to do something meaningful in life. That's what Heidegger said. The next idea is his idea of thrownness. Acknowledge that we are born into circumstances beyond our control. Okay, we are born into circumstances beyond our control, but within these parameters, we still have a freedom to shape our existence. This balance between constraints, and freedom influenced humanistic psychology's understanding of personal growth. Okay, there is this another idea that Heidegger proposed, and this idea was about thrownness. Okay, thrown, we are thrown. Okay, what are we thrown? Where are we thrown? To a dustbin? We are thrown to the world. Okay, we are thrown in, let's say, to a particular culture, to a particular family, to a particular religion, to a particular area. We may be thrown into a poor family or a rich family. We are thrown. Okay, and that's not in our control. We are thrown into certain circumstances, and that's not in our control. But still we are thrown randomly, and we don't decide whether we are going to be thrown at a rich family or a poor one. but still we have a freedom to save our existence. We have a freedom to do something, right? It's not that we lose our whole freedom. At first it may be seen as we are thrown, we don't have a freedom, but yes, we don't have a freedom, we don't have a control, but still, even after thrown, we still have a freedom, and we can still shape our existence. Okay, we can still shape our existence. This balance between constraint, okay, at one hand we don't have freedom, and the other hand there is a freedom. This balance between constraint and freedom influenced humanistic psychology understanding of personal growth. Okay, we are going to understand it later. What does it mean? When we read, it will make sense. So that was the concept. What was the concept? Was about Dasein, being in the world. Okay, so we are in this world, so we cannot just separate a person, which was done before in other sciences. Okay, people were separated, they were said more, they were looked at more objectively. Okay, the experiments were done, you know, the lab based experiments, more scientific experiment, more objective experiences, taking them away, saying that those things are going to give biases and all. But what Heidegger believe are those environment and the person, they are not, they cannot be separated. Okay, we are in this world, so if you want to understand a person, you have to understand about the environment as well. Then you can only be authentic if you live according to how you want to live, not according to how society wants you to live. And you also have to take responsibility of your life, your own thing, and then you can be authentic, or else you cannot be. And he also said that anxiety is a natural process. Okay, it's a natural process. Why? Because we know that we are going to die, and it should be something that motivates us. Okay, it motivates us to live a meaningful life, that one day we are going to go away. And the idea of thrownness, that we are thrown into something in this world. Okay, we don't have a choice, we don't have a freedom, but still there is freedom even after we are thrown. Okay, and that is a powerful thing to know, right? So that was about Martin Heidegger. I don't know whether the recording is going on or not, whether the audio is audible or not. So let's talk about the next important figure, that is Ludwig Binswanger. Okay, Ludwig Binswanger. I don't know whether I am pronouncing it right or not. Okay, he was a Swiss psychiatrist. Okay, psychiatrist. Integrated existential philosophy with psychoanalysis. Okay, integrated existential philosophy with psychoanalysis. Freud's, okay, Freud's or maybe someone else, I don't know, but with psychoanalysis to create Dasein's analysis. Okay, an approach that examined how individual experience their existence rather than focusing primarily on unconscious conflict. Okay, what does it trying to say? Let me read it again. Dasein analysis, an approach that examined how individuals experience their existence rather than focusing primarily on unconscious. Okay, unconscious conflict is more about psychoanalysis. And okay, what did Binswanger did? So he combined existential philosophy with psychoanalysis, and he created a new kind of analysis, or we can also say therapy. It's analysis, that is Dasein's analysis. And Dasein is something that we already know, being in the world. Okay, and approach that examine how individual experience. So he's trying to look at experience, okay, rather than looking at the unconscious conflicts, rather than looking on the past traumas of things that psychoanalysis looked at. What he did is he's trying to understand the experiences. For example, you have an anxiety, so it could be because of past experiences or things that psychoanalysis says. He does not reject it, but he kind of emphasizes more on the experiences. What does it mean to have anxiety? How does it feel? How is it impacting your current time? Okay, what has it done to? It's about your experiences. Okay, individual experiences, subjective experiences. Okay, of their existence. okay, of their existence. So a person exists, and what is the experience, what is the experience, their existence, how they perceive their experience. He's trying to understand that, okay, he's trying to do analysis on that, rather than focusing on unconscious battles, you know, the battles in the unconscious mind, which may cause anxiety, or the past traumas. He's not focusing so much on those aspects. He may be at some point, because that is the integration, it's an integration, but his focus is more on knowing what it is doing to you, about the experience, okay, about the experience that you are having right now. So that is Daseins analysis, okay, one of the concept of Binswanger, okay. So the next thing is, he identified 3 important modes of existence that influence behavior and mental health, okay, behavior and mental health. 3 important modes. What are they? World, okay, the physical or biological world, okay, Mitwelt, the social world of relationship, Eigenwelt, one private or inner experience, okay. So there are 3 modes of existence, okay. One is biological or physical existence, or the physical world. It's about biology and physical things, which is Umwelt. The next is about relationship, social relationship, which is Mitwelt. And the third one is Eigenwelt, one own internal experience, like what they perceive, what they feel, how they think, you know. So psychological problems, in his view, arises when one modes dominate at the expense of others, preventing balanced life. Okay, so let's say you focus more on biology or physical things, okay, more on biology. So if you focus more on it, what happens is there will be a disbalance. You may not focus a lot on social relationship. You may not focus more on what you are thinking, what you are trying to give meaning to your inner thing. You may not focus more on that, because you are focusing more on the physical thing. And what does that create? That create a disbalance, and this disbalance is what leads to psychological problem or mental health problems, okay. Similarly, if you focus more on people and trying to build relationship, you may not focus on yourself. You may not focus on what do you want, okay. You may be living for them and not living for you. And what does that do? That create a psychological problem. Or you may only focus on yourself, and you may not focus on relationship. You may not focus on biological or physical world, okay. You may not focus on those things, and you just focus on yourself. And again, there is a disbalance, which can lead to mental health or psychological problems. That's what was his name? Binswanger said. His concept of world design, or Weltanschauung, I don't know what does it what is the pronunciation, Weltanschauung, emphasized that each person has a unique worldview that shapes how they interpret reality, a principle that informed person-centered therapy approach, which is something we're going to talk about later. But he has another concept as well, okay. He has many concepts. One is Daseins analysis, and he has said that there are 3 modes of existence, and this balance can create a problem. And he also has another concept of world design, which emphasizes that each person has a unique worldview, subjective worldview, that shapes how they interpret reality. Every person have a unique. I gave an example already as well. If you have felt in love in a romantic, if you are in a romantic relationship, and if you are single, let's say, and if there is a same question about anything, and if it's more connected to it, then you will feel differently, maybe more deeply. And if you are single, you may not quite relate it. So every individual have their unique worldview. Every people see world through their unique eyes. That's about world design, okay. That's the concept of world design. And also they interpret the reality differently. Is there an ultimate reality, We don't know. Like, every individuals see the reality through their eyes. They have their own interpretation of reality. That's what we are talking about in that's what Binswanger is talking about. So these are the concepts, okay, which is eventually going to influence humanistic psychology in the development of humanistic psychology. The next person, let's talk about him. He's Rollo May. Okay, he's Rollo May. May introduced existential psychology to America and integrated European existential philosophy with psychotherapy. Okay, he took existential psychology to America as well as integrated European existential philosophy to psychotherapy. Okay, he presented several important ideas. So he also have many ideas. The human dilemma. Okay, that we are simultaneously object and subject. Object means influenced by genetic, culture and circumstances. Subject means creating meaning and making choices. Okay, so there is a dilemma. Okay, there are two bipolars. One is we are an object. What are we? We are an object. Something similar to what behaviorists said. We are a machine. We are an object. Our life is influenced by genetics, culture, circumstances. Okay, and we are also subjects. Okay, we have our own meaning. We have our own choices. So there's this dilemma, the human dilemma. Okay, and if we only perceive ourselves as an object, that could lead to a problem, right? If you only think ourselves as a subject, again, that can not make things right. So we are both objects and subjects. That's what Rollo May is trying to say. May distinguished between normal anxiety to neurotic anxiety, an inevitable part of life leading to growth, which is normal anxiety. Excessive fear resulting from avoiding responsibility, that is neurotic anxiety. Okay, so anxiety can be of two types. One is normal anxiety, which motivates growth. Normal anxiety, you have to give presentation, you have anxiety, but that anxiety is going to motivate you for growth, right? You practice for the presentation, that's a normal. A neurotic anxiety is something about avoiding responsibility. You know, you have this life, you have responsibility, and you're avoiding it, you're fearing it. There's a lot of fear. That is neurotic anxiety. That's what Rollo May is trying to say. So he distinguished anxiety of two types, and he said that anxiety is not just bad, it's also normal, it's also good, it promotes growth as well. Okay, avoiding responsibility, I don't know how to say it. Okay, there are responsibility obviously, and if you are avoiding those responsibility, okay, let's say we are procrastinating, okay, we are not doing things that we should do, then eventually that will lead to anxiety, because we are not doing the right thing, and we know that, and that will eventually lead to neurotic anxiety. If you are avoiding responsibility, that is what Rollo May said. And we have this excessive fear which limits us, which gives us this high anxiety, this neurotic anxiety. That's what Rollo May is trying to say. That was the another concept. The another concept is of his concept of daimonic, described an inner force that could manifest either creatively or destructively depending on how it is expressed. So we have an inner force, and it can manifest, or it can come out either as creatively or either as destructively. Let's say I have a lot of anger. Okay, let's say I have a lot of anger. Okay, the anger in itself, the inner force in itself is not that bad, you know. It's about how it comes out. It can come out creatively or it can come out destructively. Due to anger, I may just destroy things, you know. It can come out destructively, or maybe it can come out creatively, because through that anger maybe I'll protest, you know, I'll do good thing, maybe I'll revolt against bad things, you know. How do I channelize this anger? Okay, do I do something creative from it? Even the anger is seen quite negatively, right? But even though it's seen negatively, I can still make it creative, promote growth, promote wellness, or I can also channelize into the destructive act or behaviors and destroy my life, destroy others' life. That's the concept of demonic. Okay, there is enough force, and it can manifest creatively or destructively depending on how it's expressed. Okay, the example would be, let's say you're very critical, so you may go to people and say and pass bad comments, or you can be critical writer, and you may prioritize critiquing things in a positive way. How it is expressed, there is this critical ability inside of me. How do I express it? Destructively, creatively. That's what Rollo May is trying to say. That was his concept. May also emphasize the role of personal myth in helping people find meaning and purpose in life. Personal myth. Okay, the story, personal story. This is what I'm going to do in life. I have this life story, okay? This personal myth, that this is what I'm going to do. And this myth, this story, is going to help people find meaning and purpose in life. I'm going to do this. What will it give to me? A sense of purpose. Okay, I'll do it. The purpose, I'm doing it for it because I know the story, I know the myth, I have my own myth. And what happens if people don't have myth? It's going to be hard for them to find meaning and purpose. So if you're living life without story, without knowing, without having that myth, then it can be a problem. And that's what Rollo May is trying to say. So there are lots of different concepts or ideas. One is of human dilemma. We had an object and subject. There's about normal and neurotic anxiety. Anxiety is not only bad, it can be good as well. It can promote growth as well. And daimonics, like there are internal forces, but how it's expressed, either creatively or destructively. Okay, it can manifest either creatively or destructively depending on how it is expressed. Okay, the anger, how I'll express, how it is expressed. I can destroy things, I can damage things, and it is manifesting in a destructive way. Okay, how it is expressing in a very damaging way, and I can use that anger to maybe become a writer and write and protest, or maybe I'll go to Maitigar and protest because I have a lot of anger. So I have this internal force, and how do I channelize it? Okay, how it is expressed, that's important. And may also emphasize the role of story, personal story. If I have a story, okay, myth, okay, then I can find meaning and also the purpose of my life. That was about Rollo May. Now let's talk about George Kelly, okay? Machine Gun Kelly, it's George Kelly. Kelly developed personal construct theory, proposing that people create mental categories, okay? Mental categories, which is known as construct, to understand and predict the world. So people create construct to understand about the world as well as predict the world. Okay, his principle of constructive alternativism suggests that reality is not fixed. People can reinterpret experiences and create new perspectives. Wow. So, in a modernistic view, reality is quite fixed. They were searching for one ultimate reality. I don't know what it is said. Universalism. Okay, it's not about universalism. Here you can see it's not about universalism, one ultimate reality. It's about reality is not fixed. People can reinterpret experience and create new perspectives. For example, you failed at exam. It's not fixed. You can You can change the meaning of it. You failed an exam, oh, I'm a bad person. No, you failed an exam and you can reinterpret. Okay, I failed the exam because I lacked something. You can reinterpret, and you can also create new perspective. This is what I did. At first, I may think, oh, I failed an exam, I'm a bad person. Next time, you'll feel like you are a good person. Why? Because the thing was that you accepted that you did not study it. So you change the perspective, you change the way you felt about the same situation, you reinterpret that experience, and also you created a new perspective of it. Okay, so that's what Kelly is saying. Constructive alternatism, that reality is not fixed, people can reinterpret. Okay, experience and create new perspective. Kelly introduced fixed role therapy, where clients try out new roles to explore alternative ways of thinking and behaving. Okay, fixed role therapy means you create a new role and explore alternative ways, different ways of thinking. Suppose you have anxiety and you thought in a particular way, and your anxiety is increasing. What about thinking it in another way? You're thinking in one way. What about thinking it differently? Reinterpreting it, creating new perspective of the same experience, the new reality, because he says reality is not fixed. You can change it. So why not change it? And it may help you. It may reduce the intensity of anxiety, or may even help you. So that was more about Kelly's idea, fixed role therapy. Okay, we have to create new roles. We try to create new roles. Okay, about me, and also explore alternative way. I should think about it differently, and also I should behave differently, and that may help me. Instead of avoiding social situation, maybe I approach it. Changing behavior, that may reduce social anxiety. So that's what we can understand. Fixed role therapy. He viewed humans as scientists. Okay, you view humans as scientists who develop theories about their world and adjust them when they fail to predict reality accurately. Okay, humans are like scientists. Okay, so they develop theories about the world. Okay, they develop theories about the world, and when it is seen that it's not it's not quite correct, it does not reflect reality, what they can also do is they can adjust them. Okay, they can adjust. This is an important thing. Reinterpret, this is an important thing. Create new perspective, this is a new roles. Explore alternative ways of thinking. People can change things. That is what I'm trying to say, that reality is not fixed. It can change. People can change, people can reinterpret, people can create new perspective, people can have new roles, behave newly, think newly. People are like scientists. Okay, if the theories that they have, that they have developed about the world, let's say the theory they have created about anxiety, and it's not true, because you created a theory that this thing might help, but instead it's increasing. People can also do is what? Adjust. People can create new roles. People can think about it differently. That's what George Kelly is trying to say. Okay, so yeah, we did it, right? We talked about key figures. Okay, and here human experience, existence. Okay, existence. So we know we are going to die. Okay, so maybe we take responsibility. We may make our life more meaningful, because we are going to die and we are going to have anxiety knowing that we are going to die. What if we focus on human existence, this life, and try to do something meaningful? Free will. We have a free will, right? That's something I explained it here. It's not that my past life, it's not just about the way I was conditioned. It's not just deterministic, or it's not that the things controlled me, but I control myself as well. About personal responsibility, yes, your life. You need to be responsible, and also meaning that I give, a person give. Okay, all those things we talked here in key figures, and now it makes sense while reading. It rejected the okay, this is something we already discussed, proposing anxiety and suffering a natural aspect. Okay, we are going to die, and it's okay, and anxiety can be good as well, okay, of human existence that must be acknowledged for authentic living. So if you want to live authentically, which means if you want to live according to me and also taking responsibility, we need to understand that anxiety, suffering, it's a natural aspect of human existence. Okay, so this is the natural aspect of human existence. I'm born, I'm going to die, and there are going to be anxiety. Okay? There are going to be anxiety. Okay, and there are going to be suffering. But what we need to do in this process of living to dying, okay, this process, we need to understand that these are the natural process. Okay, and even having that, we have to take responsibility of life and try to make it meaningful. That was about existential psychology, and even phenomenology. It's also about creating meaning, subjecting meaning. Okay, subjecting meaning, because individual people perceive and interpret their experiences. Okay, so this phenomenology influence existential psychology or philosophy as well, right? And these are the key figures who has widely talked about these concepts, and which eventually has made it so influential that it influenced in the development of humanistic psychology. So let's talk about the central figures or the contributors of humanistic psychology. Those were like antecedents. Okay, those were the guys who influenced this guy, Abraham, this guy, Carl. Okay, those were the guys, and those were two philosophies, like one is existential and phenomenology, who influenced this guy, and these guys are the one because of which humanistic psychology came forward. So let's talk about them. Okay, let's talk about the first such guy. He is Abraham Maslow. Okay, Maslow, I don't know. Maslow, often called the father of humanistic psychology. Okay, he's the father of humanistic psychology. Wow. It's best known for hierarchy of needs. Okay, there is an hierarchy, and we have the hierarchy of what? Needs, and the concept of self-actualization. His hierarchy arranges in 5 levels. Okay, there are 5 levels. So it's accordingly, it's in an ascending order. Okay, ascending order. So this is at the top, and this is at the bottom of the needs. Okay, first we need this, then we need this, then we need this, then we need this, and then we need this. It goes in this direction. Okay, it goes in this direction. So let's talk about that. First, what do we need? Physiological needs: food, water, shelter, air. Okay, these are the things that we need. Obviously, we need food. Okay, we need water, we need air. These are the primary thing that we need. Secondary thing that we need is safety. We need to be safe. Security, stability, protection. This is what we need. Third is love and belonging needs. We need relationship, connections. We also need self-esteem needs, self-respect, recognition, and at last we need self-actualization, fulfilling one's potential. So these are the basic needs that we want to have in life. Okay, first is we need to have the basic things like food, water, shelter. After that, we go to next level. We want safety. Okay, first ensure survival, but survival only doesn't help. We also need to be in a safe place. We need the things to be safe so that the survival can be promoted. That is, we need safety needs, security, stability, protection. And not just that, we need love and belonging, because we are a social animal. We cannot survive alone. So if we are making a bond, okay, if another person matter in my survival, so love should be there, belongingness should be there, relationship, connections, essential for survival. And also esteem needs. Okay, not only that, I should have self-respect, I should have recognition. Okay, how do I connect it? I can connect it through biology as well, as Charles Darwin says, there are limited resources in this world, and if we can grab more resources, and how can we grab more resources? If we are more respected, more recognized, that means I have an access to a larger resource, whether it's human resource or another biotic resources. Okay, and also the last one is self-actualization, fulfilling one's potential. Okay, that's the higher form. So let's talk more about it. Okay, Maslow proposed that lower needs must generally be satisfied. Okay, these needs is the first need that need to be satisfied before higher ones can be pursued, though he recognized that hierarchy is not readily sequential. So it may not be sequential like the way it's written. So you may have physiological needs, you may have safety needs. Okay, you may not need esteem needs. Okay, and you can directly go into self-actualization mode from here as well. You can go from here as well. So it's not that it has to follow the sequence. Okay, it don't need to. When lower needs become unmet, higher needs become less important. Okay, so it's obvious. If I'm struggling for food, if I am struggling for water, if I am struggling for safety, I may not even go for that bigger picture, like love or belonging. Like if I don't have if the things aren't safe, if I'm not getting a proper meal to eat, my focus will be on getting those things. Okay, so we may not even think about the other things. Okay, he distinguished between deficiency motivation, trying to avoid discomfort, and growth motivation. Okay, so he distinguished between two types of motivation, that is deficiency motivation. If there is some deficiency, I may get motivated. Okay, so deficiency means to avoid discomfort, whereas growth motivation means motivation for personal development. Growth motivation means going towards these higher goals like self-esteem, self-actualization, whereas deficiency means we are just trying to avoid discomfort. Okay, so we may be on these levels only. Okay, it may not promote us a lot, whereas growth motivation will promote us. So those two ideas Maslow gave as well. So Maslow studied exemplary individuals to understand self-actualization, identifying quality like creativity, independence, and deep appreciation. So this last, what does self-actualization mean? Self-actualization means that you have creativity, you are independent, and you have a deep appreciation of life. It's a final stage. You're deeply appreciating this life, and you're also very creative. You're also very independent. You're not dependent on a lot of things. In so many ways, you are so independent, and you're appreciating life. That is what self-actualization is. Okay, that's what Maslow says. Self-actualized people often experience peak experiences. Okay, they have a peak moments of intense joy, creativity, fulfillment that contribute to personal growth. So they have this lot of joy, a lot of happiness. They have a lot of creativity and also fulfillment, and all of this contribute to the overall personal growth of an individual. Okay, they have the peak experiences that can be seen at the higher, more level, more like we can also say it's more focused on like spiritual level, a peak level, transcendental level, like very peak level of experiences. So these are the 5 hierarchy of Abraham Maslow. Okay, that's something he said. And let's talk about another, which is person-centered therapy. So under humanistic psychology, there is this concept of hierarchy of needs, okay, proposed by Abraham Maslow. And now Carl Rogers, what does it say? Rogers revolutionized psychotherapy by developing person-centered therapy. Who is at the center? Person. Okay, person-centered therapy, which focuses on client's experience rather than therapist's interpretation. Okay, his approach emphasizes 3 core therapeutic conditions: unconditional positive reward, empathy, genuine congruence. Okay, so in person-centered therapy, you said the center, person is at the person is at the center. So who is the person we are talking about? We are talking about the client. Okay, so the experiences of client matter. Okay, before this, therapists were like, what do you say, therapists ruled, they try to influence a client, they try to dictate what to do, what not to do to client, but here the client experiences are preferred more, what client wants. And therapy and client is more like collaborating. It's not that the therapist is dominating a client, both are, therapists are like helping a client. It's not like they're dictating, you should do this, the client is at the center. So he created a person-centered therapy, client experiences rather than therapist interpretation. Client experiences is important, okay? It's not therapist interpretation, what meaning a therapist gives to the situation of a client. It's rather the experiences of client which are important, okay? According to Carl Rogers, and he created a person-centered therapy. So his approach emphasizes 3 core therapeutic conditions. Okay, first is unconditional positive reward. Without a condition, there should be a positive regard. Accepting the client without judgment. You need to accept the client as he or she is. You should not judge. Second is you should have empathy, deeply understanding the client. You should have empathy. You should understand the emotions. Okay, you should understand the emotions. That is important. If you don't, then the therapy and clients, there will be separation. So you should be able to resonate. You should be able to understand his emotions. Genuineness, congruence, being authentic and transparent with the client. Being authentic and transparent. You should be authentic, which means it's not that you're just showing that you feel empathy, even though you don't. You should be authentic. You should actually feel it. If you don't, then client can sense it, that you're not being authentic, and that can again hinder, or that can even make this therapy process not very good. So you should be authentic. You should be able to feel it. It's not that you act like you're feeling the emotions of client. You should not be unauthentic, okay? And you should also be transparent, okay? You should be very transparent with the client, okay? Rogers introduced important concept about the self, the real self, ideal self, and incongruence. So Rogers also have the concept of real, ideal, and incongruence, okay? Selves, okay? Real self means who you truly are. Ideal self is who you want to be, and the gap between these selves, okay? So real self is who you are, okay? The ideal self is who you want to be, what you desire to be. And incongruence means the gap between these selves. If there is a gap, then definitely there can be more problem, right? If there is less gap, if you are more close to being the ideal self, if you have a dream, suppose I want to be a scientist, okay? I want to be a scientist, and the real self is not a scientist. There's a huge gap, then that will create a problem. But if the gap is small, like you're close to being a scientist, that even the real self is a scientist and the ideal self is scientist, or you're very close to be a scientist, the gap is small. So the role of therapist is to make the gap small, okay? So Rogers introduced the concept of self, real self, ideal self, and incongruence. Okay, he identified conditions of worth. Okay, conditions of worth as belief that one must meet certain standards to be valued, which often develop in childhood and can hinder self-acceptance. Okay, self-acceptance, which is also very important. Self-acceptance, to accept yourself, one of the criteria to heal. You should be able to accept yourself, your situation, and everything. The condition of worth. Okay, the condition of worth, that you should meet certain standards to be valued. In childhood, there are certain standards. You should be this person, you should be that person. So there is a condition. Okay, there is a condition. That is the reason Carl Rogers is saying there should not be a condition. There should be unconditional positive regard. Okay, there should be unconditional. You should not judge. You should not put a condition onto a client. Okay, because if you put, that's going to hinder self-acceptance. That will hinder the healing process. Right? So there is a condition of worth. The concept he talked about. Rogers believed in an innate actualizing tendency, that human naturally strive towards growth, and reaching the potential when in supportive environment. Okay, human has this innate, inborn tendency of what? Actualizing. Again, this term quite related to self-actualization. Actualizing means reaching the potential for growth, to grow. People have this innate, inborn tendency for growth, and if they have a supportive or suitable or favorable environment, then they can reach that goal. They can reach and they can grow. Okay, why they can grow? Because they already have the innate tendency to grow. What is stopping them is unsupportive environment. And if there is a supportive environment, without what? Without judgment, without unconditional positive reward, with empathy. Okay, and if there is authenticity, there is transparency, then we can actualize, or we can grow, and we can reach the potential where we want to be. That was the idea of Carl Rogers. Interesting idea. Okay, very interesting idea. So in humanistic psychology, we talked about hierarchy of needs, and we also talked about person-centric therapy. It's more about subjective thing, right? It's quite different from other science or other schools of psychology that we have studied in first sem. Okay, those were more objective. Some made us machine, some created, what do you call, some were more interested on looking at the structures, right? Breaking things, reductionist approach. Some were looking at past or about our unconscious conflicts. Some were treating us like information processing unit, right? This approach is quite centered towards human, centered towards us, centered towards subjectivity. It's giving us power, It's talking about free will. Wow, I can do something, And it's also talking about our needs. How can we reach? What should we do? It also talks about we should be given a favorable environment. It also emphasizes an environment, the world, being in the world. It also emphasizes that. It also emphasizes that we have a freedom. We can have an authentic life, right? And the things which are seen as negative in the other schools of psychology that we studied before, like anxiety being not good, like bad thing, right? Here it's seen as something which is natural. It's not something that we need to kind of fix, like it's something that it's a natural process. So this is a very different approach, and we studied that. Okay, let's talk about the contribution and we'll understand it more. Okay, condition of humanistic psychology to the field. Humanistic psychology made several transformative contribution to the field. Okay, transformative, obviously. You can see subjectivity, environment, unconditional regard, freedom, lots of transformation. Okay, so first is shifted focus from pathology to well-being. Important. Unlike previous approaches focused on mental illness, human psychology emphasizes personal growth and fulfillment. Okay, previously mental illness, psychoanalysis, mental illness, behaviorism, your condition, mental illness. So pathology, it was more focused on pathology. Okay, but now it's focused in humanistic psychology, personal growth, fulfillment. Those things are also accounted, those things are also recognized, those things are also emphasized. Okay, this is a good thing. Okay, next is person-centered therapy. Again, religious approach, transformed psychotherapy by treating client as an active participant. They are active participant. Clients are active participant. It's not that they are there sitting passively and therapist is dictating their choices, their lives. No, they are an active participant. It's a collaboration process. And therapists are more like, a client is more like a driver and therapists are more like a road. They give directions, they don't dictate, they don't kind of suggest, they don't impose their ideas, okay, in their healing rather than passive patient. Okay, passive that I talked about. Hierarchy of needs and motivation theory. Maslow framework provided a structured model of human motivation that influence field from this hierarchy of needs, it has also influenced education and management because it created a structured, well framed, model. There's this model that he gave. Emphasis on free will and personal responsibility. Unlike deterministic approach, humanistic emphasizes people can save their own destiny. Yes, people have power now. Okay, people can save their own destiny. Before, it was quite deterministic. You are like a computer. You come to the world. You have the experience. That experience make you who you are. You have this past trauma. You have these unconscious conflicts. But what it says, it's your life. You can save your destiny. You have choice. You can change it by yourself. You have the power. Okay, influence positive psychology. It has influenced positive psychology. So we are going to talk about positive psychology in next video. So it has influenced positive, laid groundwork for later development of positive psychology, which studies happiness. So it created a groundwork, okay, for positive psychology, which is something we are going to talk about in our next video. Transformed education. It transformed education, promoted student-centered learning. Okay, student-centered, similar to client-centered. Okay, student collaboration. Okay, experimental education. Okay, experiential, experience-based education. Okay, and intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic, not just extrinsic. The motivation from outside. It's also about motivation from inside. Okay, influence of workplace psychology. Shaped concept of employees' fulfillment, okay, workplace motivation and leadership strategies. Okay, influence workplace psychology as well. Develop narrative and existential therapy, story-based therapy. Okay, influence the therapeutic approach focus on finding personal meaning and embracing freedom. Okay, freedom, embracing existentialism. You are thrown, but still you have a freedom. So embrace that freedom. Narrative means you have your own meaning, your story, and it matters. And such therapies was developed because of it. Shaped modern counseling and coaching. So this is how we do right now. The practices led to development like life coaching and motivational interviewing. Okay, this helped in things like life coaching. It's not just about illness. It's also about making the life that you have better. It looks at that way. Okay, and motivating interviewing. Okay, motivation. Promoted a holistic view. Yes, considered mind, body, emotion, and spirituality. They are interconnected. If you want to understand, you have to understand everything. Phenomenology, something. Humanistic psychology looks for everything, the whole, not just part, not just only about emotions. And try to understand a human, not just only about body or spirituality. They are not separate. They are interconnected. each one of it influences each other. Now let's quickly look at the strength and weaknesses. The strength, a holistic approach, we talked about it, considering the whole person, emphasis on free will, okay, and personal responsibility, focuses on growth, yes, rather than just pathology. Revolutionary therapy approaches, yes, new therapy approaches which has influenced modern counseling, paved the way for positive psychology, yes, groundwork for positive, influence education work, encourage ethical approaches to psychological, yes, ethical, more human and centered, okay. You should be ethical because what you are trying to understand is a humanity, okay? And weakness, let's talk about lack scientific rigor, okay. So it's focused more on subjectivity, and if you focus on more on subjectivity, what is compromise? Objectivity, and objectivity is one of the key principles of what? To make things scientific. So it lacks scientific rigor, with concept difficult to measure objectively, obviously, very difficult, you know. We say these are the basic needs, we say self-actualization, that peak experience. Now how do you measure it? It's difficult. It lacks scientific rigor. Overly optimistic view of human nature that may underestimate it. Yes, very optimistic. Anxiety is a natural process. Very optimistic. It sees things very you are thrown in the world, but you still have a freedom. Okay, seeing everything quite positively, very optimistically. Okay, and sometimes the destructive tendency. Okay, some of the destructive behavior that people have, they may also look at it quite optimistically, and that could be a problem. Okay, which is something that we should know. Ignores biological factors in behavior and mental illness. Biological factors. What about serotonin? What about norepinephrine or phephrin? I don't know what it is. I forgot. I left biology. Maybe it's been 2 years. So I forgot everything. Lacks a clear testable framework with concepts that are difficult to define precisely. Okay, self-actualization, spirituality, you know. How do you define it? It's quite hard, it's quite difficult, it's a subjective experience, you know. Some say I have experienced it, but how do you know? Because only he knows. Is it correct? We don't know. Okay, it's quite difficult to define precisely. Limited application to severe mental illness compared to evidence-based approach. Okay, like psychoanalysis, evidence. There's this evidence-based approach. What about other forms of therapy that they have? They don't have quite a credibility. They don't have a lot of evidence, you know, that they work, which is a limited. So because of which it has a limited application. You know, psychoanalysis may be preferred over, let's say, narrative-based therapy because it has more evidence that it will heal you. So that is also one downside. Okay, cultural bias towards Western individualism that may not apply universally. Okay, cultural bias towards Western individualism. Okay, it says subjectivity matter, but also the environment. Okay, the society, the culture. So that may also create a subjectivity bias towards Western individualism. So it's more focused towards collectivistic culture. That's trying to say Eastern culture, spirituality. You know, Eastern. There are more Eastern culture-based ideas here. So that may create a bias towards individualism. Overlook social and economic factor that can constrain personal growth. Overlook social and also economic. It may not look at social or economic factor a lot. That could also create a problem because emotional factor do affect us, social factor do affect us. Okay, so humanistic psychology may not look at those things. What I'm trying to say is, it says there are different needs that need to be fulfilled, and it also talks about the person at the center. It emphasizes more on the individual person, their subjective experiences. But what about the whole social experiences? Okay, what about the economic factors? Those also can create a problem. It doesn't look at those things a lot. Okay, talking about the conclusion, humanistic psychology transformed the field by shifting focus from mental illness to wellness. Okay, this is important. So it changed itself from mental illness, because before we only talked about mental illness, but now it's also about wellness. Okay, It's also about willingness to be well. Okay, from determinism to free will, and from treating disorder to fostering growth. Okay, not just treating disorder, but promoting growth. While its concept may lack scientific rigor, which is a downside, other approaches, it has profoundly influenced therapy. It has influenced therapy, education, organization therapy, and our broader understanding of human potential. Obviously, the movement's emphasis on personal meaning, growth, and the importance of subjective experience continue to shape today's psychology, providing a valuable counterbalance to more mechanistic or reductionist. Okay, there were mechanistic behaviorism, there were reductionist structurism, there was psychoanalysis, more focused on past traumas and all. It gives this alternative school of psychology that focuses on personal meaning, growth, and importance of subjective experience, and that is humanistic psychology. And that is all about humanistic psychology, and we have talked and we have discussed everything in detail. So I hope you understood humanistic psychology properly. Thanks for having me. It's 1:13 a.m. Oh my goodness, I don't know how long the video has been. Thanks for watching me. Have a wonderful night or a day, depending on when you are seeing it. Thank you very much.